20 people would live there, and like shared spaces, the integration with technology, sensors, like this, and the like the isolated spaces and collaborative spaces, and all this, like a house for builders. It's not a house for a family. It's different, the design and the thing. So that's the hola. That's the news, the good news for now. So of course we need to find the place, but probably it's going to be around the International. And we already have, or at least we are talking to the architect who brought these ideas. So he already thinking about how to build. He has some projects and designs.
Can you please start again because now we're recording?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So this time, the second time is always shorter because you don't waste time. Is that good? Yeah. Okay. So just I think another opportunity. So we are starting again the presentation, but opportunity to thank Iggy, Rodrigo, everyone, Nico, who is leading the tech part and push really hard on this to build the platforms. Like because it is easy to build. Like I have an idea, I will launch an idea, I will test. This is easy, but the coordination part is hard. So we have a hub, we have other pieces, uh, and we need to integrate all these pieces together to make it useful. So it's important to have like APIs, and now we have on-chain data and all these things to offer this infrastructure to the community build on top of. So that's a big part. I dealt with I created the basic infrastructure for ID, for attestations and tokens, but there's two. We need more things. So it is pushing that, and everyone's pushing that, and also the more philosophical part. So that's as I talked last meeting. I think this is important, but I will be here always in the direction of making practical. So I think the intersection of academia with entrepreneurs is important, but once you go too far into the academic part, is sexy, is like people feel smart talking about like the whole the dynamics and geopolitics and the nuances of governance and all this. They are trying to really, at some point we need to get these technologies, these concepts, and apply. And this is very hard work because once you do that, you are compromising something. And once you're compromising something, there will be always someone to criticize. It's not decentralized enough. It's not fast enough. It's not inclusive enough. It always has. There will be a criticism, and that's okay. That's why we need entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs have the and also entrepreneurs have the urgency. So there's hundreds of years of books and ideas and concepts, and it's very hard to put it in practice. So we need entrepreneurs and technologists and engineers to get these ideas and okay, let's instead of get 100%, let's get 70 to 80%, and it's good enough, and let's try it out and maybe fail and then try again to have this trial and error dynamic. So we did the first edition was like, oh, it's good. The apps was kind of shitty. We like breaking things. There's the second editions. We are evolving now with more the constitution, better technologies, better integration, and we keep doing until we have more mature platforms. And so I will be there in the intersections of academia, and 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 I think it's important to have these more deep ideas, because entrepreneurs are usually more in the surface. They're not going really deep in analyzing the nuances. But we need someone creating this bridge to experiment and try to think also in how to make money, how to make it viable financially, how to have a strategy to attract people, more the commercial part. So that's a very important part. So this was better than the first one. We should do this always like a first time, then we do the official part. So I think related to our last meeting, these are just the three of the values that I thought at the beginning that we kind of uh, converge into that direction. That is pro technological innovation. This is I didn't. This is old, yeah, so yeah. I didn't. Pro freedom and pro human progress. It's kind of similar of what we did. So the techno optimist pro tech part is really important because we have a counter movement, which is the growth, which is
socialism.
Yeah, it's socialist, but specialized and attacking like with a techlash movement. Like they are very clear about they don't like tech, they don't like crypto, they attack crypto, they attack AI now, so they want to nuke AI data centers. This movement, and it's not, it's a very large movement, and the problem is that they infect the minds of young people. Like that's so we need to be more clear about we are actually techno optimists, and doesn't matter if it's EAC or DEC. All these movements are pro tech, of course. They are building this tech. They are building blockchains, crypto, AI, and we need to be very clear and talk publicly that we are pro technology, and we want to, of course, there's nuances on how to use this, and if we are going to use in specific techs. And but I think technology is one of the, maybe is the main tool to solve social economic problems and drive progress for communities. So that's a big part of that. Pro freedom, that's a huge one. Like we are pro freedom of speech and social freedom, economic freedom, and of course there's nuances as we talk in the when we are go down this rabbit hole. There's always nuances like this is public, this is private. What should I the what should be the community should be allowed to talk, in which conditions. There's a lot, but everyone here are aligned that freedom is good. Tech is good, freedom is good, and humans are good as well. So we don't want to kill humans. We don't want to replace humans for agents, and we need generate progress for humanity. So at least this is then it's personal, but everything that I'm trying to do here and build here is to drive economic growth for local communities in Brazil. And the goal, at least the strategy that I'm trying to do here is through economic freedom and technological development. So once instead we have our creative minds, our billionaires, millionaires, and scientific people exporting their ideas, their money outside Brazil. We create an international hub here. We try to make it as easy as possible to develop and build and incorporate companies here, and we attract people. So we already have a lot of talents here. a lot of entrepreneurs. We already have capital, good universities, so we need to put Brazil and Floripa into the international radar of this network of new jurisdictions. So I think this is a combination of how can we generate prosperity for Brazil, and of course, with that mentality, we can integrate the local communities. But it's once we reduce bureaucracy into these nodes, into these hubs, it becomes easy for the local communities to learn, to develop their projects, to make money, and so on and so forth. So and still in this topic, I think it's really important to learn to talk in English. So here, over time, we want to become a node where people can come here and talk in English and learn English and practice speaking English, because that's one of the most I don't know, like if there's one skill that is going to 5x your income, it's English. Because you learn English, you already have like some skills and you can talk. You can
Thinking about it as English corner.
English what?
English corner. Teach English. Or other
We thought about that. I couldn't organize that, but yes, that's something that we want to do like more structured. Yeah. So have like maybe classes or just conversations. That would be nice.
accent coaching.
Mhm.
Because a lot of people are doing presentations today. I can hear like every little thing. Like if you change, if it could be 1 hour of a class, you know, you can change.
Yeah. Cool. Nice. So that's just my part.
But what did you say in the beginning that was not recorded? You're talking about.
Oh yeah. So talking back. So for this year, what's the strategy or what's the plan? So this year we'll be able to move to Floripa and host more events here in a recurring way. So just right after the pop-up ends in May, I have already some options, but I need to take some action now to choose a house to host events here in a recurring way. So maybe in the first 2 or 3 months, I'm going to rent the house only for the event, and then I will host the whole period to have a hacker house where everyone can come and work from, like one more hub. It's not that fast. But in parallel, we are talking to a partner to build a house from scratch. Why building a house from scratch, not just trying to buy one? Because the houses for or the working spaces for the AR era is completely different from a house made for families or residents. So I saw some projects, some draws, some designs for this house, and it's like makes a lot of sense. It's the space is way more optimized. You can accommodate maybe 20 people in the house. You can have like open spaces to collaborate, to share. You can have spaces where you can do deep work. The house is created, it is built for more agentic work, because I don't think we are going to the work of the future is not going to be like sit in the desk and type in the computer. Most of this work is going to be made by agents. Right now, like this year, next year is not like something really far from the future, on the future. So we are thinking how what would like what the house of the future look like. So we are going to find then this is the hard part, find a place to build. but we already have some options here in Jurerê, actually, really close, and we need to do some negotiations. But that's the good news. Like once we get this piece of land and we start building there, of course we need to raise money and all this. It's not easy to do, but I think this year we are going to start building. So that would be amazing to have like this house. That will be like the first edition of the house. We are going to test some assumptions that we have, but yeah, that will be the first IP house. And then we will replicate the ideas in other places. Here in Florida, yeah, but I think over the next 2 years, we probably gonna have finished the house. So yeah, I think I don't know if you have questions.
No, that was it. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, any inputs from like what you guys would love to see in a house is welcome. Like uh, we are still discussing about because we this house is going to have a service layer on top of that. So we are going to provide food. So it's kind of similar to network school, but we are building the house. So we want to provide the food or cleaning. So there's this service layer on top of it, and of course, the crypto it's going to be a crypto native house. So with like access with crypto wallets and like the cameras also with crypto and maybe ZK or some kind of thing, and APIs integrated. Like we need to think how to make the house very easy to explore the physical parts. But
And you're saying you're talking to architects about it, and can you tell us some more about that?
yeah, I can't share yet, but very soon because we are finishing the project.
Oh,
There's a project of the house, but
okay.
We're doing ownership and funding.
yeah, this is very open. There's a few possibilities. One is because we start talking to the landowner, and we want to offer like partnership, and we don't want just to buy. It's going to be hard that way, and there is many landowners that are willing to enter into the partnership and make a bet into the future as investor. But also thinking, of course, about tokenizing the asset. So that would be a good way. But then there is the whole legal part that probably it's hard to tokenize like the house. So probably is going to be like tokenization of the company or the service or something like that. And it's going to be provided within the house. But it's still very open. Yeah. This is the hard part that I need to figure out.
How is it been currently legally represented? What is the investment?
Yeah, today we have a company on it's an LLC in Delaware. So this is a company, and we need to figure out this. In this meeting is to figure out the open part, which is probably going to be like a foundation or something, with the token and so on. So that's the part that we need to figure out how to decentralize, how to create the legal entity for that as well, and how can we distribute the responsibilities and the shares of that part, and what's going to be the relationship of the LLC with the foundation as well. So this is very open. Yeah, I think I think that's the main thing to be discussed. Quite.
Thank you.
Thanks. Here. So.
for yours is the project on Jet. Is the project the architectural and civil engineering project like already done?
No.
Because we have a
Only
lot
with the
of-
click, so
Yeah.
how
Yeah,
how it
just
works?
yeah.
This
Mhm.
this one.
Okay.
Put it here.
Better to hear.
At some point, we have to open up for the view.
Okay, so we have explored, these weeks, how is going to be the IP city governance, like the things that we just discussed past weeks ago with all these guys that were gathering here. So basically, this is a proposal of a full stack kind of governance. Everyone could put some input. We could elaborate this program, in synergy. But this is a potential framework, that we have explored, so far. Because by the end of the day, everyone could put input, but we need to create a more aggregation mechanism, to create a meta governance kind of structure to make this happen, on the long run. So we will start a little bit, this is the framework overview, the ideological foundation itself, the things that we just discussed, the constitutional layers, operational systems, voting and capital infra, identity, credentials, local integration, and network state vision, and involving all the external, stakeholders and the parts. So I will not explore, the whole points deeply, but this is basically to have a wider perspectives of how can this could evolve at this stage. And for example, like John just said, these are the three philosophies that we need to push a little bit, are the foundations basically, but with different words, the DIAC approach, everything started with the DIAC manifesto in a way, and we need to put this local part, and right now in Ethereum, we're quite agnostic, we know that, but this is a good concept that essentially we could boost this concept, in the wider ecosystem. How can we create global protocols that everyone could use, but focalize them into local actions that essentially will aggregate the info itself? And we need to basically biomimicry nature in terms of capital allocation by the end of the day. Because since the early stages of humanity, we actually have been done a lot of stuff, but right now with these new kind of layers of technology, we need to fund everything, or at least partially, like 80% with this kind of vision. How can we create parallel flows? And with smart contracts, we could essentially create infinite loops of information with this infinite garden that is basically we're building, and yeah, you should.
Yeah, I agree, but with usually with communication in philosophy, I would not use too much jargon.
That's
Yeah,
good.
like even like Ethereum, it's too specific for like the philosophy
Agree.
part. So I would say like maybe using like decentralizations, like because of course we are here, most of people are crypto nerds, and everyone understand. But I think like the way that Nico puts, like it should be very
Tangible, for
agnostic.
agnostic.
Because this
Agree.
is going to endure for decades and
Agree.
years. So it's like
As simple as possible, avoiding jargon.
Localism is like doesn't
Why?
matter if you're using Ethereum or whatever. It's layers where the local part has more autonomy, and once you get more scale, you have less, let's say, the power is for the people into that community, and even the act like we are pro tech, like this is a very more broad, and then if you double click onto what does that mean? Like, there's the egg that we are thinking about the defensive and decentralization of things, but yeah, just
clarify. Yeah, it's good. That's why we're here essentially. By the end of the day, we need to avoid jargon and integrate this to be tangible, for all the stakeholders of Floripa, for the elders, for the youth, and we could develop programs that essentially could include all the stakeholders in different, verticals, for example, in parallelisms. So I will continue. This is basically the immutable foundation. This could be quite co-adaptive, but as you said in the beginning, freedom, economic prosperity, for everyone, and technology plus innovation. These are the roots of everything. And by the end of the day, we need to share these ethos with all the stakeholders. If someone do something or someone is quite eager to, okay, I have this idea, needs to have a proper governance layers with the guys that have more presence and the ones that are more aligned into certain situations. It doesn't matter if you're a scientist, but if you, for example, put or have a good idea and that idea is not quite good to implement at this stage in Florianopolis for infra, for whatever, you could not essentially create your idea because it doesn't make sense. For example, if you come with an idea that could be quite implemented in the first world countries, for example, and could not fit here. We need to create like an evaluation of these kind of processes to basically implement certain actions, this kind of membership, and with this kind of exit rights, like you said before, that essentially this is all about that, okay, the people are quite aligned, will contribute, and we need to essentially iterate this process, at various stages. So the amendment, regarding communities, the consensus of all this, because we don't want to be like a cult or like a cabal thing, like you said, that sometimes usually many people are quite okay, you're a crypto bro, so how could I fit this? So we need to avoid this kind of situations because this is the long term, of the technology. How can we use it, and be inclusive and be quite progressive, about prosperity. So,
one thing that I don't like about the actually is
Uh-huh.
one comment. People usually say about the founder, but I quite like that part. But the one commander is true. People misinterpret very fast. So
I agree.
because very like this one commander is technology, and then so everything is technology. The guy just talk about technology and nature and humans and like so there's this part. So I think the good way to put that is in values. Like what are our values?
Mhm.
They are very pluralistic. Like, there's multidimensional. There is freedom part, economic growth, technology. So with these pillars, we have a sense like okay, like there is a few people that are attracted to that, and other people that are not attracted to that.
I agree.
So I will not use the one commando because it's too like I think
Reductionist.
Our brains doesn't
Yeah,
work
we're
together.
reductionist. Yeah.
We're too obsessed about that.
Hmm. So to moving forward, these equal powers, in terms of the framework of governance, we have many players, in governance systems. So we have the founders, the ones that incubate the idea per se. We could potentially create like the assembly or with the residents itself, everyone, it could be quite equal, but as we have seen throughout the history of governance, essentially we have identified particular types of governance, depends of the players involved, so we need to integrate these kind of elements that we just mapped in various or a simple model, in terms of the system that we are quite eager to create. And the architects, that basically these are the guys that are usually builders, that the ones that actually build products that everyone could use, and they could basically allocate or create new mechanisms and capital allocation flows. Capital, I mean capital in the whole sense of the word, cultural capital, avoiding argon, cultural capital, financial capital, and various forms, the 8 forms that we know. For pillars, as we say, these are the ones that are quite more into aligning it into the ethos that we just shared: governance, finance, health, and education. These pillars, we need to create like a proper. I have seen other models. We need to integrate them properly because the system could essentially be quite good, in terms of flow and in terms of the healthiness, for example. So each one operates independently, and these resources sometimes are quite competing. We need to create like a flow system between these that essentially be quite more like act as an animal, if you want to see a way, or as an ecosystem that essentially will flourish. For example, in terms of governance for health, for example, the thing that we just talked the last session of governance in security, biosecurity, for example, or aspects of education. You need to be healthy to have proper education in a way, as a society and as an individual. So the other aspect of it, we just talk about how this could be quite evolved through time and how can this could iterate in the short term, mid-term, and in the long term. But for example, we have this pop-up city this month. So we're shipping something by the end of this whole program. So we could, in the future, we could develop like a 7-day decision cycle. This is an example, but because you and we are planning to create this program on the long run, like a permanent hub. So we could create specific programs to builders or to people that want to be residents, essentially, and create this kind of cycle, and this will be quite like an endless loop for innovation itself, it could be like a 7-day, for example. I just put it here. New proposals, build and refine ideas, with the teams. What are the necessities itself? Saturday demo days, and Sunday provide decisions, and this will be endless, until the system supports. And many contracts and the technology allow us that. If we are building something, essentially we will allocate more resources, in various forms of presentations. So that's the valuable thing about this. We need to stay active and essentially iterate in the whole process. And this is more into the democracy itself in monetary purposes. Anonymous bailouts. These are some mechanisms that many other entities have used and have been quite successful at many levels and partially successful in others, because sometimes, like you said before, some people are quite too technical, and it's good to make the whole framework in a scientific paper and everything, but by the end of application, that application process usually varies where are you located, or your trait of the social layer that you're quite implementing that. So I believe that this could be, and we could start to iterate this, for example, the cryptographic democracy between the people that actually know the technology. But as we just saw a few hours ago, we need to integrate certain aspects of the technology without this friction. That's why we have seen many tools that are quite frictionless. So we need to develop tools more into this kind of perspective, to get involved more individuals and groups, organized groups. So fun like a forest. We need to, this is the aspect that I like the most, because we need to be more like nature. Nature usually regulate themselves properly, and governance, we need to regulate ourselves with this kind of aspects. These are some of the elements that we could implement in governance systems. Quadratic funding, commission voting, retroactive funding are the main ones that we have used in crypto, but right now we could use this same mechanism for basically to implement other ones, because well documented there are like 17 different ways to allocate capital, in various forms, like I said before, but these ones are the ones that are more like into this kind of thing, but we have others, more like VC funded, more like angel investors, more into philanthropy aspect of things. So, but essentially the loop internally would look like this, in terms of, if you agree, or, this is more into input and aggregate all the documents that all created and create like at least one manifesto, for example, of IPCity governance or operations. So in terms of this aspect, from participation to power, this is more into the aspects, like we just, actually you use these words, explorer, if you're an explorer, if you're an architect, these elements that essentially will create like these aspects that some communities usually have, to avoid, this is basically the civil resistant architecture, that we need to have to make it successful, you know, by the end of the day. So involving more participation and create more basically incentives, genuine incentives. We need genuine incentives because many people usually come here to create value, you know, and to exploit or create the other things, you know, with the systems that are here. And as we know, is rooted in Florianopolis, you know. We already have a local, or we're working in the local economy, you know, that you're quite developing since a year ago. We need to create this kind of bioregional funds and involving more individuals, or look for NGOs or organized groups that essentially could get involved and create certain experiments, you know, and play with the technology, because by the end of the day, we need to test things in the field, you know, even to see how it. And you know, I just put these names, but essentially, is how can we create better coordination in these biosystems to, you know, with these kind of perspectives that many nodes, well known, like these entities have been doing, you know, regionally speaking. I believe that you have the opportunity to have in the past some members of those communities, and in the long game, you know, it's more like a hybrid thing in the beginning, because you coined the idea that, okay, I need to do this, and everything was remotely, you know. But right now, startup society, I believe that we're basically here, and how can we create like diplomatic or more presence with the local authorities? Because if we want to build something, and I appreciate this about Florianopolis, because there are many startups here, like you said, you know, and you need to fit in with the local stakeholders and decision makers to make the governance happen, you know, properly. Because if we isolate and we do not, if we don't permeate the society itself of Florianopolis, I believe that this could work, you know, as tech bubble, but probably will not scale, you know, on the long run. So beyond the community, you know, these are aspects, more legal aspects and all that, the things that John just talked to us a few minutes ago, and basically building this together, you know. These are some of the commitments. We just mapped this in a document, and they're like around 6 layers of working that we need to build this, you know, properly, like more like a map of complex stuff that we could iterate and look for. So that's it. You know, this was created with Iggy and with my perspective and some inputs that we just heard a week ago. I don't know if you want to put some more stuff. Thank you.
Because what Rodrigo created was very technical in governance, and it was very interesting at the same time. However, yeah, for this short meeting, it's just almost impossible to explain everything. It could take a whole afternoon or a whole day. And I really appreciate Rodrigo sharing it with us, because I learned a lot. I still have to learn a lot. So yeah, basically what I did was to compress his ideas into a presentation that can actually be digested in a meeting like this. But I think over time, it would be nice to kind of like maybe integrate into the bonfires your whole plan and your whole diagram, which is great. And then, yeah, over time, we take feedback and we construct this kind of like more approachable language, because, yeah, we're in the middle of the process still, right? And I do agree that, yeah, making it like more approachable, more understandable is important. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think the reason to host a pop-up is actually to learn that and experiment that. There's a reason, because we are doing this like one month, because we can bring experts, like a lot of specific topics that no one knows about, and privacy and decentralization and coordination of several tools. And that's why we call it a laboratory. So
like a lab.
Experiment.
It's called collaborative.
Yeah.
Collaboratory. That's good.
And but that's why I mentioned it, like the tech part it's overwhelming, like it's very difficult. But
But don't
the
you think,
philosophical layers.
yeah, but don't you think it's important to discuss it at a deep level and try to find out what's still, what's the best of each,
Yeah.
and try to research,
Mhm.
and new things are coming out all the time, and then kind of like abstract it up to like, it's kind of like the process. But yeah,
Agree.
this guy here, Rodrigo already brought bonfires. He brought McDonald's, and he's bringing a lot of expertise. Yeah, great stuff. Yep. Does anybody want to present it?
Go.
I have some questions.
We should
actually
put the
regarding,
bumper.
like regarding the
Should record it.
the
with bumper.
presentation.
Yeah.
Oh,
Especially like regarding funding.
Mhm.
Because funding, once you have a big treasury, funding can be done in a good or in a bad manner.
Agree.
There might be very successful funders that fund good stuff and make profit and long-term sustainability. We can be bad funders that fund things that go nowhere and we lose our own money. But before all of those things, you have to have the money, right? Like,
Mhm.
like when you see like the city governance being drafted on this way, what's the understanding of what funds is it governing? Like, where is the common, like we do not have taxes between ourselves right now.
Mhm.
Where
How-
are we planning like for example selling services to generate income, and then that income can either create taxes or be distributed, like like I guess that's where
Yeah,
it's going,
what do you
right?
govern? I think
Yeah,
that's the
exactly.
question I want to get to.
For now, the way we are setting up now, is year-based. The company funds put money in the trade.
Okay.
That's so we, for example, with sponsorship, we got sponsorship in the company, and we are funding the public good, let's say.
Okay, so the what you govern is a treasury at this point.
Yeah.
Okay.
So over time, it would be nice to have be more self-sustaining and have services and a platform like a microeconomy where we can get. This is one of the reasons to have a platform, small economy, is also to get a cut and share with charity. So,
Yeah, I believe that I got your point, but for example, I really love the perspectives that, for example, Octan already had, that they have basically a treasury of Golden Foundation, and they allocate with rails and with a quorum the most active projects in certain fields. So this could be like a stream of money in a way, but that is not the only solution. For example, I would appreciate the other initiative called Superfluid, that if you're active or if you are quite into developing something, your repo, we need to create metrics. Depends if you're a builder, okay, what are your contributions in your GitHub repo? What are the apps that you're quite deployed, your contracts, your wallet itself, and that could be quite easy, to allocate in certain groups. If you're a builder, certain funds, and these rails could be quite infinite if you're still building. If you're not building, it's like a faucet. If you're not building, okay, close the faucet.
That was
So-
another note I was going to bring, like the quadratic funding, I think, for long-term organizations that want to keep funding going using streamed quadratic funding.
Stream.
I think the guys that now are helping with Ethereum localism, it's Geo Network. They have some very good software for streamed quadratic funding that I think for like long-term communities can work better, exactly because of this. Like you can not only say like, oh, I really like this one and I put all the money here. No, first moment I make a first evaluation, but then I can see as the projects move, who grows faster, who's actually delivering, who's turning investment into value, and then you can reallocate your own vote through time, which works also well with the conviction.
Conviction voting,
so
yeah.
it turns out to be nice. But okay, so looking at the treasury, so not choices.
What's
Determines.
what decide what is the rate of my vote? All votes are the same because, and are you looking to what type of calculation you vote?
yeah. So right now, at least for the last year, we are using version of holacracy. So it's the vote is weighted in your collaboration. So we create a type of formula that measures several dimensions, time that we spend, the risk involved, and innovation, and many other things, 10 parameters, and then we transform that into points, become tokens, and then we distribute for the community. But everyone that is collaborating, even before, like the organization, and now, of course, when we run that, I got like much points because I'm doing a lot, like I'm full time in that and putting much effort. And then my part, I also allocate treasure into that. But it's like you put in your project there, we measure, and then there's a whole.
And as you have a treasure, you have all the layers of security. You have a plan of multi-chain wallets. Who would be the person that you need to hold this wallet? Would be one person.
No, it's a multi-sig. We just set 3, 4 people to sign that would be the easy part.
Yeah, and then speaking of where is it? So working on something here that okay, wait. Skip. That was bad. No,
Next time. I need to change my computer.
so changing the or let's start again. I'm trying to visualize how this all is going to work. So this is a prototype of a prototype. Governance dashboard for the DAO. If we're gonna call it a DAO or whatever we're gonna have, right? So a dashboard for voting. I have some data here that is true, and most of it is not placeholders and fake data because we until yesterday we didn't have anything, and today from today on there will be a big effort from John and EBC Village for everybody to register your passport at add.ebase. Yeah. So we're gonna host workshops and incentivize people to create the passport because the ENS, the ipcity.eth name is going to be your identity for now. That's what I'm going to be using in this experiment here with the governance platform. And yeah, I'm gonna build this out and thinking of doing a forum where we can discuss and vote things in here. So you get inside each proposal, you can discuss. It's kind of really like a forum. This is, as I said, all placeholders because we don't have anything to decide yet, right? But you know, it's
Any suggestions? We are going to use the guy. What was the name? The DAO platform.
Vogtoni. Yeah.
Or Snapshot.
Yeah. Snapshot and Vogtoni are a little bit competing, but I do think that Vogtoni is the future because of the ZK layer that they're implementing, and we can use that in this framework because their repo is all open source and they already have all the tools. Like we were asking today, I looked inside the repos as well. They have all the ZK voting proofs, and sometimes we don't actually want to use the ZK because we want our votes to be public. In some, we can just turn it off. But in some cases, especially when it grows, it will be important to have this infrastructure because you don't want people to be coerced or think that their votes are being
The main difference between Snapshot and Vokdoni is understanding that one of them is going to be forcible execution and the other is not. can, but it's not really fit the spec right now for doing on-chain voting. So making sure. So basically, using Snapshot right now means that once the vote is ready, it depends on someone just to go execute it. Or Volcanic can guarantee. Snapshot can also give you privacy. They have shielded voting. They can also offer private voting or non. Snapshot tends to give you a easier UX, but a worse, like a weaker spec. The easiest to do, it's not what you want in the long term. So you can start with Volcanic, like one of the best things made for on-chain governance in the world for scaling. Like their stuff is amazing. I was very like, okay, you get Volcanic. Nice. Like very stuff, very excited.
Yeah, got it. Yes, and yes, we can definitely implement it, and maybe by the end of this IP City, this will be ready if we need it, if we need to use it. Like if we can think of use cases to make proposals, or like we can definitely.
The next steps first.
In the community asset, we can allocate the 5K from grants to be voted there already.
Yeah.
Then once we get there, and then we just need to make sure that we attend the sponsors criteria. So because part of the grants is only for projects on Zama and Hoodstock, but the other part is open for any project.
Yes, got it. Yeah, and got some stuff here with the token, some information. It's probably not everything correct. We got citizens. This is pulled straight from the Explorer. So we got some stuff here from anti-capture, block food, trustful stuff. Yeah. Yeah, and I'm actually thinking this is really useful, extremely useful for DAOs in general. It's like more of them should know. There's this the Nakamoto coefficient, and like it's so cool.
Nakamoto coefficient is a very good metric that we're going to have for the spaces, but for the governance, it might be tricky depending on how you do it, especially if you don't have all the tokens being actively used to vote. Like it can be deceiving in some senses, like worth understanding like how to use it. Like is it Nakamoto over the whole supply, Nakamoto over distributed supply, Nakamoto
or only
over the
active accounts.
Yeah, delegates, for example, only delegates, because this could, because
only active delegates or all delegates.
Exactly.
The guy has lost his wallet. He's still counting against your
Mm-hmm.
Nakamoto, but he can't really vote against. So those metrics are a bit tricky to understand what you're doing Nakamoto against, but it's always good to have it.
In the RSK collective dashboard I was playing with, this one has 80% of things are live, and I was very much looking to, because I implemented the coefficient somewhere here, maybe it's here, yeah. And then every parameter I changed gave a completely different result. And then as you said, it's not simple. It's not as simple as just giving a score. It's like what do you measure?
So it's going to be opinionated.
You said there's 15 delegators, and then in community activity, you say 57% in the previous sprint.
Yes, because and that's why we're talking, like, because what are we measuring? And sometimes here I measure total community, and sometimes I measure only the active community,
The voters.
those who for example have been voting the last 3 months, and then from that's like the term or the I think I need to experiment with more and learn more what are the actual, let's say, rules. Because every time it changes, or for every DAO it can change, and also the thing of like, okay, we're measuring the Nakamoto coefficient, but then it gives a bad score. Then it's like, it's not the project themselves might not like it, right?
Yeah.
And then you're like, well, but so
That's
there-
one thing to overcome when you're making dashboards about society. Some people are gonna be very mad if the data you show, and you have to
Exactly.
keep showing it.
Exactly.
I just thought it was high, you know what I mean?
Hmm?
I just thought that the percentage was high because I was part of the academic community. We have a big down there, and we have a very, very, very low number of participants in the last season. So I thought, well, where this is based from, like if you're based the total members and then 50% is participating, you get a high level.
Yeah,
In
yeah.
my view, of perhaps we all like it.
Yeah, but
Most
yeah,
DAOs nowadays are like below 10%.
Yeah, but that's the
no
thing.
$1 billion DAO with 10% doesn't happen.
yeah, because it also looks at like the concentration of funds in in number of wallets, right? And that's more the what I'm talking about is that some DAOs will not like this to be measured. You know what I mean? Like some DAOs have a lot of concentration, right? So it's very tricky. However, over time, I think we'll learn how to measure and how to.
And I think one important part of the debate is that maybe strategic, many of the decisions going to be centralized in the company really fast. Like we can vote like, oh, you're going to decide about this sponsorship. Everything related to bringing money and building tools, like this is maybe company or team like very centralized to make fast. Everything that we need to make fast is going to be centralized for now. And then funding projects, growing the community, expanding the public goods, this kind of things is going to be voted by the community. So I'm not a believer into like in growing a company or startup or organization in a decentralized manner. I think you need to have like a very even like
Sense of reality somehow.
yeah, even like Ethereum, like a small team building the platform, like you need people taking decisions fast, iterating fast. If you democratize everything, it's going nowhere. Like very difficult.
Yeah, it can be that in the beginning the main governance entity proposals, how do you say, creates proposal or chooses what is something to be voted on, right? And then go from there until it becomes, like you can take yourself out or the company out if you want and all that. But that's it. I think, kind of like where it's going, and I think, in a week, maybe even at the end of Tuesday, we can try to use this. Yeah.
Anyway, governance is always, always, always interesting.
It is, right?
I'd say that at this stage, for sure, the best governance you can have is in my opinion, it is the early of project, and then understanding for damn. Wow. Yeah. Like I think that one of the best ways to start experimenting with partial power decentralization would be to understand what things that are overwhelming peer base at this point. Like I said, I don't know if you're acting solo as peer base with the rest of the organization as individuals, or if there are more individuals in peer base.
Today there's a so there's people definitely team working part time and Victoria, Lizzie,
And so understanding what things of making this happen and improve and attend residents' demands and needs and is getting too much, and then getting those things that are like, okay, have to prioritize. We can keep those, keep the core, keep the more important, and as they come up, flood them to community. I think like That's why I asked before, like, what to govern, because like I think that's the hardest like question to get right in the first moment. If you just go like, we want to govern what
Yeah.
something, that tends to go bad.
Yeah, I think very concrete is, so for example, we have right now apps and platforms and infrastructure built for us, but also by the community. This is an asset built for and by the community, and it has value. So first, how can we make these infrastructures generate money for the community? How can we allocate for the builders? And how can and how can we maybe capture all this value with the token as well? So I think that dynamic is the thing that we need to decentralize and to create this governance layer and economic layer as well to allocate money.
And those tokens
govern.
are, so far what I've seen is that they are like all the governance passes through like the things you brought up before. Now I don't see an investor part of the governance. The idea for it is not to IPO and let outsiders govern too.
Yeah, that's something to be decided as well. So for now, I didn't thought about selling tokens for now, but this is a possibility.
Because it makes everything way harder once you do.
Yeah.
Once it becomes shares, like it's
Yeah,
gets
I've been
harder.
trying to postpone because like I created a token to track contributions and create a way to distribute maybe the revenue created by the community based on the token, but it's just a tracking mechanism. So we can decide, oh, maybe every quarter we can distribute 5% of tokens for the token holders, or 1% or half of
For the contributors.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a longer term mindset, right? How do we scale IPCity from a month to longer, or on a year, and that can be the contributors get share or get tokens over time, and if they contribute, and if not, they don't get it, or, that kind of thing. That's an interesting idea, and then one day it can become you can ICO, or once, because then of course then the tokens need to have some value at some point for the contributors, right? Because but it's already nice to create the governance of the utility of it as governance even before ICO. So there's like something, there's already value in it.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking is. You don't need to have don't have to have liquidity to share. Like for example, let's say that we organize a pop-up, it generates some profit, and we decide as collective to share part of that profit for token holders. So we can use the token allocation already in place
Token
to share.
allocation as a revenue, what do you call it, like distributor?
Yeah, you split that amount that we decided proportionally for the token holders.
That is very interesting.
So that's a very easy way, because you are not dealing with liquidity and liquidity providers and laws and so on. You're just tracking, and then we decide, we can propose that, oh, let's split 5% of our treasure in the end of the year for the token holders. We have like 100K and split 1%, and then everyone gets their share proportionally by the token. It's just a tool to measure collaboration that we can use however we want. And that's why I'm keep track of the collaboration, because I know at some, like even in these editions we are going to do something like that. So I think that's a good way to incentivize people to contribute, to get tokens, because they are going to earn something.
And they think in this case, if you don't
put the token in a DEX. There could even be something I just imagine now, like some sort of like secondary market for it, like basically people selling over the counter to other people, like, that could actually work in a way, but then, yeah, what is the value of the token? I mean, it could already create some sort of economy without having to worry about the token itself, or would it actually make it? I don't know. It's something to think about.
Is there anything to do with the soul?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah, there is trade-offs. Like if we could like track contributions associated with the ID, for example, with the passport, the passport.
ENS.
But then I don't know. You lose flexibility. Like I don't know. Maybe you could like have this transaction with other people.
You don't have to either so bound or not so bound. You can make them like make the transfer function something you can turn on and off through admin, and then you can make governance, for example, be responsible for that admin, or make a multi-sig between like member governance and a peer-based wallet that the both of them together can turn on transferability, or turn on transferability for a specific list of whitelisted addresses. It doesn't have like, we don't need anymore to use like a binary so bound or not.
Yeah,
there is
what
like
I was going to say, maybe there could be some hybrid model. Remember, someone was giving a presentation about the governance model value and the economic model value. So they were kind of divided. So maybe soul bound token could be just a minimum viable, like just a token, basic token, minimum token for participation, and there could be a token on top of that, or just in parallel with that, that would do with any economic activity. You know what I mean?
I think that it will depend about the purpose, like you said. Because, for example, Boldoni, you could explore all the options, more like on-off rails with, with their tools that they have. It could be more technical Web3 CK stuff, or it could be more into, you could actually fragmentate the voting system as you wish. That's a good option. We will need to explore more about the options and the use cases, for particular projects or particular governance options, tools, proposals. So you're next.
Next?
Yeah, I think.
With the presentation.
Yeah, go.
It's the same presentation still. I made it more refined now, but
That's good. Feel free to share.
Yeah, let's go ahead.
I mean, if you want, we can go more into details this time, but
yeah, I'd love to have like at least some drafts of the topics that we agreed upon.
Yeah.
And then maybe.
Yeah, I need to go soon for a meeting, but I'll stay as long as I can. And you need to class it, or do your thing
I can
before.
I can play it again.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, did you finish your presentation last time?
Yeah. We got to the end. Yeah.
tomorrow's holiday. I'm going with family tomorrow.
Just because if you don't screen share, then the TV will be loud.
The TV is.
We're planning to have.
And then I'll just take my stuff.
And
Then it's video recorded, so I'll watch it. Take sure.
Rovi?
Op de dashboard.
It was 1:30 just for no one. It's better to light a candle than curse the darkness. Deep.
Yeah.
So deep, man. Yeah.
Because we're always complaining about the current system we're in, you know. And my proposal is let's create a better system. You know? It looks right. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So I guess let's continue with the constitutional framework. So let's recap real quick what we have been talking about last week, so everybody is on the same page again. What is society built on? We talked about this last time.
The social contract.
Social contracts, exactly. Yeah. What are social contracts? Quick definition. Yeah, 100% correct. There we have the right answer. An agreement between people, right? Based on principles and values. And what is a smart contract?
Pure math.
Okay.
0101.
It's a contract not between people, but on a blockchain enforced by math. So, but smart contracts have their origin in social contracts, right? I mean, just to iterate that a little bit, what is the social contract of Bitcoin and Ethereum?
You're right.
Oh, what are some implied, because it's decentralized, right? What are some implications of Ethereum and Bitcoin that didn't exist before?
The consent, people can get in consent openly and show to everybody at the same time.
Exactly, yeah. Or a transparent consensus, right? I mean, in the traditional system, banks have your account balance and they can lend out the money however they want, you know. But in Bitcoin and Ethereum, everything is transparent, right? Open participation, right? Anybody can participate, independent of nationality, skin color, religion, whatever, right? Those are social contracts. They are enforced by math on a blockchain and through consensus. But those are all social contracts, right? Permissionlessness. I can send my money anywhere in the world. I can make business with anyone. Those are all social contracts at the end of the day, right? So that is why we need to talk about the social contracts before we talk about smart contracts on chain, right? So everyone agrees here that we have a rule-based system. All right. Social contracts define society. The question is, how do we get from bureaucracy, crime, pollution, corruption to a better world, community, science-based innovation, clean streets? How do we get there? Well, biology basically showed us the way, right? First, you have an online communities based on principles and values, right? Talking about social contracts. Then the level 2, where we are right now, we are in a pop-up city for a certain period of time. We all come together in the same geographical location and try to build a new system. Then the third level, and John talked about this earlier, is to buy a patch of land and have a permanent local residence. And the final goal is to make this permanent local residence turn it into its own jurisdiction with the social contracts we agreed upon earlier, right? Okay. We talked about this last week, and we already agreed upon which values should ePaCity be about. That is our first social contract and the most important one, right? What are we striving for? And we agreed on innovation, social prosperity, and innovation, technology, and economic prosperity, right? So then we talked about the Hobbes versus Locke. Huh?
And freedom.
So-
And freedom.
Yeah, right, freedom, yeah. Because innovation and technology was / technology and then freedom. And then we talked about Hobbes versus Locke. What did Hobbes say again? Quick recap.
Really?
Sometimes people are stupid and vote for stupid shit. What did Locke say?
Decentralized power.
Yeah, a big centralized power leads to corruption, right? So Hobbes wanted to say we need a big centralized power, and Locke said no, people are actually capable of voting the right way. And as we said last week, they're both kind of right, but they are both kind of wrong as well. So how do we protect against a corrupt centralized government? That was the concern of Locke, right? How do we protect against that? Well, we have a good example of a protection against the Hobbes concerns, and that is a constitution, right? We have invaluable rights that we implement and cannot be voted against, right? And maybe we can at this point dive into some specifics of the invaluable rights. I don't know, or I'll talk about until the end of the presentation, and then we'll talk about the invaluable rights. But basically, this would be our next step, right? We agreed upon the values. Now we have to implement a constitution and its rules that are invaluable. So no one can vote against these values, right? Then we are talking about cities as startups, right? And the bottom-up structure. So we have on the basic level, we have the municipality, right? Which is jour de lait in our case. And the question is, what services should jour de lait offer? Then we have the metropolitan level, which is Florianopolis, the regional level, Santa Catarina, and the coordination layer, Mercosur, right?
I
Yeah.
think jour de lait as a municipality is confusing for me. Because jour de lait is a neighborhood, right?
Yeah, but the goal is basically to have all these neighborhoods implement their own jurisdiction. That's why I call them municipality.
Okay.
You know, and make them an independent jurisdiction. Yeah.
So this is already looking at your idea, not at
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that is my framework. How I see the world. That's why also, I mean, where's Brazil here, right? The national level is totally missing because we don't need necessarily the national level in this framework, right? The national level can still exist, you know, but in this framework, and doesn't really make sense. So if we have our own decision level, where should all the power lie? We talked about this last time as well.
Anybody with a weapon?
No, you're
Okay.
The power should lie locally instead of centralized somewhere 1,000 miles away from here, for example, Brasilia, right? So if we talk about beach access, local security, construction working, education, local business laws, I don't know, trash separation, whatever, right? Sustainability. This should be all decided by the municipality, right? The independent local jurisdiction, right? And above that are only coordination layers, and those are optional. For example, drug policies as well, and those are optional. For example, do we want to have a power grid that is not on a local level, but maybe it is better coordinate with other jurisdictions in the surrounding, therefore make it more efficient for for all of them, you know? Same with water, could be with hospitals as well. Does each little neighborhood need its own hospital? Probably not, you know. We could coordinate with 3 or 4 other local neighborhoods to implement a healthcare system that is working properly. Same with sewage, the sewage system or an airport, you know. Does each jurisdiction needs its own airport? No, not necessarily, you know. But those are all optional. I mean, we could also build our own airport. There's nothing stopping us, but sometimes it's better to have a coordination, you know. But the important thing is the power lies always here. You know, we have the option to decide if we want to go one level above or should we stay local and independent. Okay, and that is basically the most important thing here is basically defense, right? So we need some kind of defense system in order to protect us. On the coordination layer, but could also be already on the regional level. All right. Yeah. Any questions here? So the take.
So many.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So many. I think my first one, I think, is the one that everything else derives from. Is once you put the weaponized power on top of the coordination layer, what makes you believe that you're still going to have the right to make choices yourself at any layer below that? There's one guy with guns. It's not you. He has the power, not you. You'd be better, luckily, be voting to elect who calls the shots of the weapon guys. Else they just, oh, the rules here to go to the beach are A, B, C. The rules to go to the beach now are, I have a bigger gun than yours. Now those are the rules to go to the beach. That's how the world runs outside of like modern states with daddy giving us soldiers to protect us. You don't have daddy giving you soldiers to protect you that you elect for. How you keep sure that this power can exist?
I mean, it's not that new. I mean, Brazil, what is the military of Brazil doing right now?
Oh, but they call the shots. But the thing is, we can count on them for some stuff because they obey the guy that says which is the law that we follow. So you're above. How do you guarantee that this guy protects you? If you're like, okay, I want the protection, but I don't want the taxes.
No. They will get paid. They will get paid. There will be taxes. There is a minimum amount of taxes. Yeah. I mean, that's what we talked about last time. There are some services that you cannot privatize, in my opinion. You know, and this is still.
There are no optional parts.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah.
That is my question. Because you said like first thing you said like everything above is optional.
Yeah.
That's what broke me. But now
exactly. No. 100%. And also policing is also not optional, right? Because you need local enforcement, right? So this is on the local level, the local enforcement that no other guy with a bigger gun can come and say those are my beach rules right now. We still have local police, you know, who enforces. My point is, this is decided upon locally, you know. So we can have our own policing, you know, with our own rules. Okay. And this is also tax funded, in my opinion. So policing all the like I said last time, the basic pillars like the judicial branch, the executive branch, and the legislative branch are all funded.
Yeah, I'm just seeing now that you have little tax notes there. I wasn't seeing that before.
Yeah.
That makes more sense.
Yeah. Exactly. No, there will be way less taxes. So the only tax I'm proposing, because many other things, for example, I think the education system could be privatized very easily. I don't know what else. Healthcare, you know, could be privatized easily as well. So there will be way less taxes, but we need some minimum amount so that there can be rule of law and not the stronger one wins. not the one with the biggest guns. Exactly. Okay. Any other questions?
Why do you choose exactly education and exactly healthcare to privatize?
So education, I believe, is a question of innovation. And I mean, the initial transition is not because right now it's government funded in most countries, and that ensures basic level right now, but the basic level is super shitty. I mean, you guys know this better than I, because I got my education in Germany. But even I thought even in Germany it was shitty and not more time relevant. So I think in the beginning, of course, the best education will be made available only to the richest. But as always in capitalism, smart entrepreneurs will find a way to scale that to broader masses, and then the broader masses will have better access to the education
I
system.
don't even know. I think it's going to, because mainly the education now is going to be digital, and digital is free. So even like most of the best education is going to be free for people. Like that's
like
maybe some specific I don't know, art school or something like very specific, but the basic layer of math and language.
I agree, it's the end state, but it will take some time until we get there.
I think the problem there's a few confusion about education. So one thing, not only about education, but private and public, that is worth to highlight. One is private and public is not the same as free and paid. This is so you pay for bus to transport is public transportation, but you pay for, and you have also public healthcare that you don't pay for, and then there is private education that you don't pay for. For example, there is free preparations for the university that is free. It's NGOs that provide, and then there's private that you pay. So that is not the same thing. And other thing that is worth mentioning, that is one thing is privatizing something, like open for the market, and another thing is outlaw a public service, for example. So, for example, the education is public, and the private solutions, like any solutions that entrepreneurs could come up with, it's outlaw. That's the bureaucracy part. That's the view. That's why our education is cheap. It's because if you innovate in education, you go to the jail. That's the main issue of. So look, there are all these dimensions that we need to think of. It's not only like public private.
Teacher, and was very curious that you like have the most mindset at the government have now. They spend more than a prisoner in São Paulo they would spend in the students in the classroom. Somehow, everything that we build or everything we go, the first thing people take off is education and healthcare. Like, meaning, it's important, but we don't care enough.
Yeah, and that's why I think you should privatize it, because the free market will take care of it. You know, there will be an innovation. At the beginning, it will be only made available to the richest because they can pay. But then there is money to be made, so it will be made available to the masses after a while. That's my.
I'm curious about the making it out loud. You're talking about experimenting with educational models that do not fit the basis, the minimal election, the minimal curriculum national.
Yeah,
that, right?
there is a specific methodology and curriculum that you need to follow, which is MEC. So like the whole K-12 and university that.
I think like Waldorf schools, they're still inside like the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm curious, they're so different from like
absolutely private. So the best private school, what they do, they
comply with MEC in some part, and then they create something parallel to provide. So you need to comply with MEC. You don't have
you need to do the basics that they do, and then you can do something else, but you're obligated to do that same basis.
Absolutely.
Okay,
And you don't, for example, if you create a basic school for kids that is not separated by age, for example, you are committing a crime. You need, that's a reason, because you have first grade. It's not nature, like this is imposed. We thought that, we think this is like, that's normal, but not. The best schools would be with mixed age and different, like, people, kids of old age teaching the youngest ones, and so on and so forth. But we don't have that because it's like a fly. It's not only
And it
Brazil,
works.
it's in the world.
It works
So
beautifully.
it's the same system in the
The
world.
mix, like I've been to some that here in Brazil, by the way, that they have different age classes, but they're like in the middle of the woods. They might be totally illegal.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that they're legal, but there exists some, and they like it really works like great, stopping isolating kids.
Yeah.
Like,
And there's so sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Good point that you made, because I thought about this as well. Because if the government comes up with a framework, right, with this MEC for education, the intention is good, but because what is the intention behind the government setting some basic standard, so that everybody gets a minimum of amount of education, right? It's,
There's a very little of it should check. And actually, they now took philosophy and sociology out of the minimal knowledge that is.
Yeah, so I agree. So the implementation is shit, but the intention is good. So what I propose in my system instead is a coordination layer, or whatever layer, seal of approval, which means you have certain quality standards, and if your local innovation meets these quality standards, then you will get a seal of approval from the coordination layer, for example, but it's not like for the MEC system, if you do something else, it's illegal, because I have actually another example, water quality, right? How do you ensure, because that's very difficult, if we implement like a total free market, how do we ensure that we get good quality drinking water in the supermarket, Here, the seal of approval could help a lot, We know there are certain standards that this water adheres to, but it's not the necessity for entrance of market. So if another company comes about and says like, oh, this is scientifically not proven, we provide way better drinking water because this and this, we don't get a seal of approval, but we have some other stuff in our water. They can still sell it. They just don't get the seal of approval.
I need to think more about that, but I think this puts some centralization. Like I think the model, I think process figure out that, which is you have of regulation. So you can have competing because it's not only like corruption, it's like competence as well. So maybe the person is well intended, they are trying to provide a good service, but they don't have the ability or the skill, the technology. And also you get like this marketplace of regulation, and the municipality can choose from which water quality provider are the best. Not provider, but the quality.
Yeah.
I think that would be a better way to module.
I mean, that's why I'm saying it's all comes down. The most power lies within the municipality, right? There could be For example, there could be a coordination layer seal of approval, but our municipality says those are totally shitty standards. We will make our own standards, right? That are, for example, way higher than the standards that the coordination layer has, you know? So that's why I'm saying it's always optional. You don't have to.
And then it's so obvious because if you have like a fish village or I don't know, a place, a small municipality close to the beach, and you want to teach kids to fish or technology for fishing because they are going to grow there, and this doesn't make any sense to do in a place that there is no river or is just pure technology or in the middle of nowhere. Like it's very context based education, like where you are growing and your culture. Like it doesn't make sense to be. It should be very local.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Yeah. Any other questions?
This is always the
mentioned
very polemic slide.
Yeah, of course. This is
It's a deep discussion, and I would say about the education doesn't have to be even under control municipality. It could come to the home, the family, homeschooling, because each person is so different from one another. Each family has so different values that may not align 100% with the municipality education system. So I defend that we should allow even homeschooling.
Yeah, we can totally do that in our municipality, right? We have total independence, right? So so that's the whole point, you know. You localize the power because you individualize, and that's always also because I talked about the Hobbes-Locke dilemma before, right? Centralized power always corrupts, you know. In case you don't like the rules of a municipality, right? Because you think, oh, this municipality has been hijacked and don't want to be here anymore. You can just go to the next municipality where they have better rules, you know. That's your protection against like an overreaching government, you know.
So he was talking about the case of outlawing homeschooling. What you say it should not be on an individual level. You would have to move out of this neighborhood, right?
I mean, depends on the municipality. If there are some we can agree here that homeschooling is a good thing and should be allowed. But there might be other municipalities who say like, oh, this shouldn't exist, and who are we to say to the other municipality, no, you cannot do that. You have to allow homeschooling. No, it's we in our municipality agree that homeschooling is a good thing, and the other ones have maybe a different view and can implement.
I love the views. I find it like there's a little bit of like romantic idealism around the way we're putting things. I think there's some type of stuff that like break fast. So I'm just gonna try to play devil's advocate and bring criticisms on some stuff that I think if you want to build this type of system. My dream is that you guys figured this out and this works perfect. And that's the ideal world. I just have to say exactly how that can go for things. Example. Let's say I want to make a municipality where I have my factories and I want slavery to be allowed there because I want the work in my factories to be free. I'm also the only provider of gas in this region, and your municipalities are my neighbors. And now I'm going to tell you that if you want fuel to survive the winter, you cannot accept anyone coming out of my area. If you do, your electricity, you're going to freeze. So now you don't allow immigrants from my area. Now they don't have where to go. Now I have slaves. That is not a good design system, right? The system is, if a system that allows for that is not well planned.
Exactly. So you cannot make yourself dependent on other municipalities for infrastructure, right? There always has to be an agreement. If we go one level above, you know, and there needs to be basic laws, basically that should be laid here. And another example would be, I thought about exactly this as well. What about crime zones? So, like, for example, like abusing children or something, if someone creates a municipality and says, we do 2 weeks of community service here if you if you abuse children or something, that would align with our values, I think, as well, So there are some things that are, that's why I put the hammer here. There are some rules that you have to make. You have a minimum standard, that other that rule of law exists on this layer. It should be minimal, right? We should always aim.
The constitution runs over which layer? The constitution is for municipality or for which layer?
So the constitution says whatever lies within the decision power of an individual municipality should lie there. And only the rules like we talked about right now, that we cannot, that this municipality cannot carry its own, should lie on the regional or even the coordination layer. And I explicitly wrote also, the Hobbes versus Locke's dilemma should always be in favor of Locke, always in favor of the individual or the municipality, right? But there are some basic standards, like Zug said, and my example, that you cannot, you shouldn't make, same with water distribution, you said gas, electricity, all of these, there needs to be some baseline.
I think most of the reasons why my thinking goes a little bit wild when thinking of like making the rules on the local level, because power corrupts, is like the idea of having smart contracts is like the first step in humanity where we can say, okay, not necessarily power will corrupt anymore. Now, there are some parts of power that we can put in an algorithm and it's not going to break. There's no way someone steals it. It's just going to execute. So although I think the Hobbes and Locke duality goes very far into our history, I think we're like about 9 years, 10 years now from a point where we can start thinking of social organizations going beyond that, because we can guarantee some stuff. We can put some parts of the rule that cannot be corrupted because they simply can't. They're like, the Constitution should be a series of smart contracts. And if it is a series of smart contracts, then we finally have something that can stay in the top of the pyramid, because it's not going to get corrupted. So I kind of get divided between those two paths. Should we try to go like the hyper local as the basis, or start through the major, start through like the top of the federation, the top of the whatever new name? I think we should look at new names instead of like replicating old models. Like what comes up here that we could look, which part comes first? I think it's a hard decision. This is a very valid exploration, just like very curious to.
I thought about this as well, and you're exactly poking the right point. I thought about this as well, and remember my first slide. Smart contracts are always built upon social contracts, and social contracts can be changed, and therefore smart contracts can be changed. Because imagine if we have a not functioning smart contract at all, because it was suiting us in the beginning, but now it doesn't make sense at all anymore. We can write a new one, and socially agree upon that smart contract and not the other one, right? So that would be my argument for this structure, right? And also, I think we are very much into crypto in this stuff, and know what's smart. There might be other communities. We talked about this as well, actually. You told me there are some fisher villages, who are enjoying their life and don't want to have to do anything with technology. I think they should have a right to govern their own without any smart contracts, and not have a government said like, oh, we have implemented this set of smart contracts. Now the Hobbes versus Locke dilemma is solved for you. But you have to.
All you have to do is pay 30% for making every night.
Exactly. So that's why I would resolve in favor of more of this mechanism. And the next step, just to make a bit of progress here in the presentation, is we also have to decide what are public goods, what are hybrids, and what are private services. And for example, to resolve this dilemma of one municipality that controls the gas reserves, we could implement a hybrid without implementing necessarily a monopoly. We could give the infrastructure to the state level or even the coordination layer, but then let private firms compete on the infrastructure. If they say, oh, yeah, I can provide you with cheaper gas, then people are going to make the contract with them instead of the other provider, right? So, and the same goes actually for roads, right? I think actually roads should be a public good as well. Why? If we let roads be a free market, then a bunch of rich people would buy land and everybody would build their own road, and it would be a mess, you know? Then the island would be more roads than nature. We don't want that, you know? So roads have to be a public good because it's in all of our interests on the island to reserve the nature on the island, right? Yeah. And then, yeah, we can walk through all of these. This would take an enormous amount of time, right? Everybody also has maybe their own opinion, but I thought about these, and I think actually this is a pretty good distribution here. But I'm always open to critique and to change some stuff.
Have you checked the rival, non-rival, excludable, non-excludable access for goods?
No, I
think
haven't.
this is a nice material to look into this type of thing. It's dividing like all types of goods into private goods, common goods, public goods, and public goods, depending on the fact that they are like excludable or not, or rival or non-rival. Meaning, does it get to be closed or open? Does it end if we use too much? Is it like it might be an interesting follow-up for you to take on that part.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. We could use that framework to decide for our municipality or eco-city how we distribute these. Then we have, it's not made up, but we have actually a model backing the idea, right? It's a good input.
Shared it on the governance.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Then next, let's let's talk about taxes a little bit. our favorite topic, right? I'm in favor of implementing a system of transparency and accountability, right? So how it works right now in our traditional system, we as the end users, if we send money to each other or make business with each other, we are getting spied on all the time, right? Because we could evade taxes theoretically, right? That's the justification. And then if we pay the taxes, they are essentially going into a black box. We don't know really where the money is going and how it is distributed and what's the exact decision mechanism. And the end result is corruption, of course, right? And my idea is to flip the whole process upside down, basically. So to say, okay, what if private citizens have the right to be anonymous and send financial transaction anonymously, and then we are paying the taxes. And if we pay, or let's say not say paying taxes, that we contributing financially to the government, then the government is spied on a public blockchain, and there could be different. And I think that's where the community dashboard that Iggy was building was really good, fitting. If we have separate vaults, for example, this vault is dedicated to education. This vault is dedicated to healthcare. Then one person is responsible for that vault. And if money disappears, the person who is responsible has to show some accountability here, right? There could be laws implemented for that, right? So we all so public funded goods are always transparent, and there's always some accountability mechanism in place if funds are deployed, right? Which we don't have at all. So basically, flip the whole process.
And would citizens also decide which vault the money goes to?
If yes, I'll come to that. If they are, if you decide, I mean, we have a basic tax rate, which what I would propose is the consumption tax, right? Because everybody has to consume at some level, and so everybody automatically distributes, and richer people buy more expensive stuff, so they're contributing more than poor people who are buying cheaper stuff, right? So it's a perfect tax, in my opinion, to fund the minimum amount of public services that we need. All right. But if to answer your question, if I implemented a mechanism, I will come to this slide next. If you're saying I want to donate 1 million to education now, you can do that. You know, it's your money. You're contributing it. Because you're a nice person, then you should also decide where the money is going. And that's exactly what I will talk about right now. If we think about taxation, what do you think, right, the traditional taxation system, would you say it's stick or carrot right now? Yeah, stick. I mean, you have to pay. If you don't pay, you go to prison, right? That's our current taxation system, and we pride ourselves in, oh, I'm paying so little taxes, you know, it's an achievement. So the carrot for us right now is not paying taxes, you know. And again, I want to flip the model here and say, what if paying taxes is if we want to pay taxes, if we want to contribute to society, how would the world look like where we want to contribute to our society and makes everyone's lives better?
Pay more taxes, get more votes.
Huh?
Pay more taxes, get more votes.
Yeah.
I would love to see someone try that. To be honest,
that's not working in my opinion, because then you capture the whole system. Imagine Jeff Bezos, you know, like he would buy more than 50% of the votes, and then he would say, yeah, Amazon doesn't pay taxes anymore.
And just do like some quadratic basic stuff, like limiting stuff. Like I'm not saying that is the ideal model, just that there would be a very interesting experiment to learn.
You are on the right way, in my opinion. You are on the right way. The only thing I would adjust to your model, you cannot buy votes, but what you can buy is social reputation and privileges in the society. Because if you have, let's say, $10 billion, right? What is $2 billion more going to give you from a financial perspective, right? 20%. Yeah, but let's say 500 million. All right. But what if you could buy your way to social reputation and privileges? And I came up with a system where you have badges, basically, that put you into certain categories of social contribution, right? And these badges go along with privileges and a certain amount of basically social recognition, right? So if you're contributing 4,000 euros, I put the amount in reais as well, so you guys better have a better understanding. For example, that could be the basic community contributor badge, you know. And if you basically donate 4,000 euros, 24,000 reais, or 50 hours of your working time, you will get this badge, and there will be certain privileges, like super basic, like free access to public museums, for example. That could be one privilege that comes along with that, right? And then we scale this up to all the way. If you donate 200 million euros a year, or 1.2 billion reais to a society, there should be a higher privileges that come with that. Maybe you can have your own highway, that only people that pay that amount have access to. Or the government at this point, if a couple of people do that, could offer a private jet service for them, because of course that costs money as well. But I mean, $200 million, you could buy a private plane for cheaper, and yeah, exactly, yeah. And if you bring that value, remember it's on your terms, right? You don't have to do it. Like these 200 million euros or 1.2 billion reais are contributed out of the good of your heart, right? Then why not fund a private jet? And what that would do is, rich people in society are always considered like bad people because they extract value from society. Oh, they're not paying their fair amount, they're not paying their taxes, whatever. Rich people shouldn't exist. But what this model would do actually is show them also visually, hey, this guy is a good guy who contributes to society and is brings a lot of value to society, and they will get social status, the rich person, which is I think a rich person has two objectives, and that's social recognition and legacy, right? At some point, more money doesn't give you anything, and it's just because the number that you have that will give you legacy. But if legacy it would come from social contributions, I think rich people would heavily incentivize to contribute to society. So that would be an incentive mechanism that would turn the stick into the carrot and be an incentive mechanism to contribute to society and make it a better place for everybody. And then we could talk about like specifics, like, oh, if we don't have enough funding for healthcare right now, there could be a little multiplier if the rich fund, like if you donate to healthcare, you will get a little bit more points in this bracket, so you can get faster to the upper level and stuff. Those are technicalities, but the basic concept is like turn social contribution and consider it something positive that are people striving for instead of the stick.
Know that this money is earned in a fair way.
Earned?
So you have slaves, and you have more money, and you can buy all this money.
Bro, I really want to go in that direction, but I think we're gonna go very far on the discussion. We're gonna start taking
But you remember, we have basic rule of law. We have basic rule of law, right?
Yes.
But how would you have slaves?
But outside, because for example, in Brazil, you can,
You mean like
outside of
some
Brazil, you can making money, I don't know, in Africa.
Yeah.
When you come to Brazil, then you say, no, I will follow all the rules.
Okay.
I have all this money already, and I want to buy all this.
Okay, but then what do you have? What do you get out of that? As the slave owner who extracted all this money.
Well, the thing is that
What would be the incentive for you to do that? Is my question.
Looks for the rest of the people that you are really good person.
That you are a really good person. Okay, yeah. Yeah, fair enough. But I mean, my argument would be that could happen, yes, but at least the money is going somewhere good, Like because what is the status quo right now? He's keeping all the money and spends it on cocaine and hookers or whatever, right? Which is not so. My argument would be it would be slightly better than a status quo because it would flow back into innovation and for public good. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions regarding the incentive system for social contribution?
Or maybe you could get those badges only from the earned money that you earned within the
Well, it can be like
I think he's worried, like, you don't know where the money comes from, then you can buy all the badges.
Yeah, but then you buy all the badges and you have contributed a ton of money to
Right
society.
now, for example, in some business Spain, are like a really good person in the community who can get this kind of badges. Maybe the school, that's your name.
Yeah, exactly. There would be another incentive.
That's your name. But it's not always related with money. Sometimes it's for example, in my town, they call the football area is called by one guy that is a good guy, but he was so all the time to play football. Like he's a really good person, but do it for free. As like a coach, and then he brings the guys and the chills to play football there. The balloon, so
Yeah, I mean, that could be implemented as well, right? Remember, we have all that is open in our decision framework as well. If we think, oh, this person has brought some value in another form than monetarily into society, we could give them the badge as well. Could be an absolutely fair point. Yeah, it doesn't have to be
You
monetary.
have the hours working in the society together with the money, so maybe those should be separated and get the different badges. Like if you contribute hours of your work to improve the society, everyone can see that. But you cannot do it with slave money or slave work, right? You are contributing your own hours, and everyone can see that. So that's a very verifiable means of contribution.
Yeah, but the problem is that rich people don't give their time. Right?
Maybe their time could be more valuable.
Yeah, but that gets super tricky. And also, I mean, money has value as well. You cannot build a society only on working hours. So I mean, if the person
I'm not saying either or. Maybe you should be hybrid.
Yeah, it's both. That's why I put the hours there. So you could either contribute 50 hours for the basic service or 4,000 euros. And then 200 hours or 20,000 euros, right? It's an either or. That's what I was going with right now. Could be a mixture of both also. Doesn't mean we have open design space, like I said. But the basic premise is to incentivize like social. It's very interesting that that in Spain it's already like this. Yeah.
the thing is that there are some drama. Then one government is like, oh, this guy was really good for the community.
Yeah.
Then comes another government and they say, contrary. This guy was bad, really bad. Because he saw some things that we don't know, but we don't want it. So this,
Yeah, and that's pretty good. And to pick up on that, but we could also do like a rank board, basically, where like the most the people that donated most to society will be shown on the community dashboard that Iggy, because that's an incentive as well, right? So if two rich persons compete for the number one spot, and they want to contribute more and more, so it's basically gamifying social contributions, right? And
I think it is like for the discussions good to push back and try to find these edge cases. But I think it's important as well to, when we understand like how the status quo works and we compare this with the status quo, like also we do that, like we said, oh, okay, like this is already, even with these edge cases, it's 100x better because you're not coercing for people and it's transparency. So I think it's always it's nice to have this tension, like let's try to push to perfection, but at some point you need to there will be some money that you are not tracking, and that's fine, and you're going to do it anyway.
Exactly, like you have to be practical. Like some people will make illegally money, and I think they should be. I think the justice system is responsible for that. If it can be proven that
because you don't have control over other jurisdictions. So
Yeah.
like even like this is not going to substitute China, for example. So for example, there's all these discussions about carbon emissions and so on, or even AI. Like like good luck to convince people to in China to do different. So it's important to accommodate some things in local, but the walls is keep going. Like they are not changed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So at some point you cannot control it, but at least this way, right? The money is flowing back to good causes eventually. You know, even if it wasn't earned.
And I mean, I think it's important to bring these edge cases to discuss, and maybe there is a solution, but at the same time, keep us in mind, keep in mind that
exactly
not 100%.
Life is not perfect, right? Life is not perfect.
Yeah, 4,000 years ago.
Yeah.
Mostly the same. It's like how we have convinced all of these things and all that.
Yeah.
Thinking in another bit in the city and all that. So basically, I have to say that who have the power, who are how you can change that power.
That's exactly what I wanted to dive into right now.
One question about the previous one. So it's like just literally making the taxes as optional.
And to have the minimum, the 10% consumption tax. So if you're buying a product, there will be 10% consumption
So
tax.
there is no limitation right to buy the badges. Because like if I have the choice of like, okay, I will pay my minimum amount, and then I will just reinvest right now, like immediately, start reinvestment. And if I can get to choose the badge, I will get with the badge.
Yeah, I mean, you could choose to do that. Yeah, that's I mean that's your freedom, right? The question is, how fulfilled will be your life, right?
More like crowdfunding projects. Money.
It's crowdfunding. By crowdfunding, I have a problem with that word. You're expecting returns on crowdfunding, right? It's an investment, and the badges are social contributions. You don't expect you're expecting a better society around you. In that sense, it's also an investment. But crowdfunding is you have a monetary incentive.
But I think it's the same thing actually. You're talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
Like he wants to put their money, so there will be like a path. Like if you want to fund something very specific that you like and you understand better, you know that they are doing a great job. For example, you can put the money there, and then you get a budget.
Yep.
Doesn't matter.
Like Gitcoin. Gitcoin is crowdfunding as well, right? But you donate, you don't expect it.
Yeah, but you expect that's the best example because with Gitcoin, you're funding a project, right? You don't expect anything, but in the end of the day, it makes probably your investments better because Gitcoin is making projects on Ethereum, and a project on Ethereum mean more users on Ethereum, which means ETH is going to have eventually a higher price. So it's very indirect, but it's a thriving Ethereum, leads to a thriving Ethereum ecosystem, what you want to see, but it's a little bit decoupled from the direct monetary incentive.
And also sometimes you might get a retro draw. Some companies, they see that you donated in the past and they just send you some tokens as a retro draw.
Yeah.
To prove contribution that you didn't expect that, but you still get rewarded.
Okay, interesting. I didn't know about that, but it's also nice, right? Yeah. So how do we prevent the case that one government is considering a badge worth giving out and the other one not? And basically, what I came up with as a solution is liquid democracy. So we all know how our democracy works today. We have every 4 years. Is it in Brazil also 4 years? Election? Yeah. So we have 4-year cycles of elections, right? And everybody makes a cross once in 4 years, and then we can't do anything anymore. And what my solution proposal is, because we have blockchain technology, right? We can basically right now, everyone can right now municipality improvement proposal. proposals. So the same like Ethereum improvement proposals, which anyone can write as well. And those can be related to any topic. I just made some examples here, traffic law or healthcare or banking rules, right? And then if this proposal will get enough backing, then this will be put into a voting box, and then people can vote for it. And now it's really important because sometimes not all people know about healthcare that much, you know, or not all people know about the banking system so much, right? So how do we solve this problem? Well, you can delegate your vote to a specific person who might know better than you about this area, you know? So in this case, 4 people delegated their vote to this person, so this person has 5 votes now and can make a more informed decision that has more weight. And that is, of course, all optional. All people can vote for themselves if they elect to, but in order to have more informed decision and higher voting participation, it makes most of the time sense, I would argue, to delegate these votes. And then these votes are delegated, and then these informed decision makers, I call them, make super votes, which include all the votes that they gathered on the basis plus their own vote. And like I said, you always have the option also to make your own vote directly. And the most important thing, like I said, anybody can do these municipality improvement proposals. I think there should still be a dedicated legislative branch, like some dedicated people. For example, in the beginning, Jean is going to be the council and maybe 2-3 other people or whatever, you know. But I think it's very important over time to democratize this process, because at some point this will grow so big that Jean doesn't have like an overview over everything anymore, and then we need some experts who can maybe give some good input, right? And if it's appreciated by the community, then it will be voted for, and we could implement this as a law. Yeah, those are the basic concepts that I'm suggesting. Yeah,
Very, very simple, easy.
I mean, it is kind of, it gets tedious, right? Because we have to agree like on standards, but I think the concepts are themselves are not that hard.
No.
Yeah.
I think it was really good to have it the second time. The first time was very confusing all over the place. People were asking a lot of questions, but now it's so
It's way better structured because I had the chance to work it over one more time, you know, and now it makes logically more sense, right? Yeah.
Good.
All right. Yeah. Any questions, critique, or you will be hearing it the 3rd time tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. I'll do it in the founder house after the updates. Yeah.
Cool. Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's it. But no, it's just a system, you know, the things that as Tim said, it's like all the idea, like the work paper, and day by day you will see new problems. We have to change a little bit. So
Yeah.
So thinking the constitution, we have to like must be like a article, very basic. This is basic stuff, and from there, and change the thing.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah.
In my intention, I think we in the decision-making layer, the governance layer, at least the top layer, you're going to see less people and more agents. I think we are going to have more agentic decision-making in the process that will change some premises, because it's going to be more open source and more transparent, and maybe we can adopt more this kind of framework, because one of the we are afraid of centralized decision making because people get corrupt, but maybe like if you come up with a good combinations of open source agents, we can let them make more decisions and centralize decision making into this, maybe a group other entities combined with agents, and that will be like the perfect, very simple. They take decisions in the top layer, not on the base layer.
On the coordination layer.
Coordination
right?
layer.
Yeah, I agree. The only thing I would caveat it with, we should always remain veto rights, right?
Yeah.
We should remain veto rights, and the decision has to be justified. The intention has to be clear and has to be justified the correct way. But other than that,
I think the humans set the intention and we validated the output.
Yeah.
But once the process of the decision making is clear, it's very hard for a politician. Like the agents present all the arguments and they compare the pros and cons, and there's data, and they got to a consensus, and then someone like, oh no, it's not like it's for even for voting, it's like everyone is going to vote based on the explanation of the LLM. So even put that as a tool for to bring contests for voting, it's way better.
Yeah, I agree. The problem would be to implement it on the coordination layer would probably be hard, because I think the coordination layer should be minimal. We could implement it definitely for our municipality again, because if we implement it on the coordination layer, I mean, right now the coordination layer is only a thought experiment, right? Because we're building a EP city. We're first one step after another, right? But if we have many EP cities, then the coordination layer becomes a real concept, you know. My problem is if there are other EP cities that are not that technologically friendly, I would say, you know, it should be their right, and maybe they don't want agents to make their decisions, right? But we could definitely explore it on the municipality level, or we could make it an opt-in for other states and even make it a regional thing or something like that, you know? I mean, that's all possible.
Another quick question on the last slide.
Yeah.
Do you think
okay.
And they might, I think I know, I'll just voice my opinion. Do you think there should be some extra incentive?
I don't think so. We could talk about that. My experience is more, I'm not interested in that. I'm not going to vote. You know, that's, I think, way higher percentage of the population is like, oh, this decision doesn't affect me, and I don't know what they're talking about. I'm just not going to vote. You know, so I think that's, and the liquid democracy should solve that better. And I think if you are certain about a topic, it should be, you're right, that's democracy in the end, you know. That's the system we agree upon, right? So that's why I wouldn't do it right now. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, man.
For sure.
Murph.
Oh no. Yeah.
It's coming.
And here I have this all on paper as well.
Oh yeah. Try this.
Yeah. Here also with the badge tiers, for example, they have other numbers here right now. And where's the? I wanted to find.
Yeah, I will try to prepare this weekend to explain developers here. I think it's important how we can start already accounting for the collaborations and sharing and stuff.
Yeah, here we go. For example, those would be like the constitutional rights for individuals that cannot be voted on. You know, for example, here, right to live and prohibition of the death penalty. Right. So if we're mad someone, no one can vote basically to kill this guy. Right. And then bodily autonomy.
This is based on the
of violence. Huh?
This is based on something other jurisdictions or
This is based on AI.
This is based on make no mistake.
yeah. I think one thing that even Balaj says like that is the mentality of startups. Like you are trying like a regular startup. You copy everything and you get 1 point and you try
to improve that. Yeah.
If we try to like come up with everything new and building from scratch, is like it's very difficult.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, I'm sure the AI didn't invent this. I'm
Yeah,
sure
yeah.
the AI looked at like existing frameworks and
Yeah.
based that upon existing frameworks.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we could even say explicitly like find the common ground between Brazil, Germany, and some countries. List out all the constitutional rights there, and then make this our framework.
And that's how we end up with Article 37. AI is your overlord. I'm sure he found it.
So that's what I wanted to do.
Can you show the video?
All right. How do I disconnect?